Hello, this is John Shi and welcome to my first episode of C++ tutorials brought to you by CloudTechie. In this episode, we'll talk about the Hello World project. We'll learn how to enable line numbers, create a C++ file, print to the screen, and how to move to the next line. First of all, if you have not downloaded Visual Studio 2010, I have provided the download link in the description. Simply click on the link, select your language, and start your download. Now that you have Visual Studio 2010, we want to make sure we have line numbers enabled. I'll tell you why this is important later in the video. Go ahead and open up Visual Studio, then click on Tools, then click on Options on the bottom of the scroll bar, then expand the button Text Editor. Under Text Editor, click on All Languages, and make sure this line numbers box is checked. If it's already checked, simply let it be. Then click the OK button when you're done. Now we want to create a C++ file. Click on File, then place your cursor on New and select Project. Make sure Win32 console application is highlighted. In the first slot here, we can name our project. I find it easiest to type in your last name, followed by your first name and your project title. Then click OK when you're done. Once this window appears, do not click Finish. Instead, click on Next. Then make sure the empty project box is checked right here. After it's checked, go ahead and click Finish. On the right side here, you should see 4 folders. Right-click on the Source Files folder, place your cursor on Add, and click on New Item. Now we can make our C++ file. Make sure C++ file is highlighted right here. Then type in a name for your C++ file. I find it easiest just to make it the same name as our project name. So I'll type in Shi John Hello World. After you've done all that, a blank screen should appear. This is where we'll type our program. For almost every project, we will begin with this format. Please remember the following lines of code. Please type include IOStream and include conio.h, both starting with a hash sign. Anything with a hash sign in front of it is called a preprocessor directive. These are executed before the code actually compiles. The include IOStream declares the standard input/output library to be added in the C++ file, which will allow us to collect text from the keyboard and to print text to the screen. The include conio.h includes the conio.h header for our C++ file. Conio.h allows us to wait for a key to be pressed, change text color, clear the screen, move text, and more. For most of our projects, we will start with these 2 preprocessor directives, and we will learn more in later episodes. Now we will skip a line and type using namespace std. This statement will declare the standard name library to be added to our C++ file. A namespace groups classes, objects, and functions under one name. You can think of it as a drawer which will hold the tools you will need to use throughout your program. To see all the objects of the standard library, click on the second link in the description. Now we will create our main function. A function is a group of statements with some kind of purpose. We will go over functions more in later episodes, but for now we will just stick with using one main function for our program. Please type in int main, followed by a pair of parentheses, an opening brace, then skip a few lines, and add a closing brace. This is our main function right here. A general rule of thumb is that any code you use to control multiple lines of code, you will need braces. Braces are used to determine the scope of a particular statement in the program. For example, all the code we type in between these two braces belongs to the main function. Towards the bottom of the program, but inside the braces, we need to type underscore getch followed by a pair of parentheses and a semicolon. A semicolon is C++ syntax that tells the compiler to end a command. Most commands are ended by a semicolon. Getch is short for get char. This command will pause your program and wait for the user to hit a key. Without getch, our program will immediately end without letting us see the results. In the next line, please type return 0 followed by a semicolon. The return 0 will end our program and all of the lines of code after that will be ignored. So make sure this is the last command in your project. Now we will learn how to output a message to the screen. Before the getch and the return 0, please type in cout followed by 2 less than signs and hello world surrounded by 2 quotation marks. Then when you're done, add a semicolon. In here, the hello world is called a string. A string is any collection of characters, letters, or words. Whenever we are printing a literal string value to the screen, it needs to be surrounded by quotation marks. After we typed in the hello world in quotations, we can run our program. Simply click F5 or this green arrow here under Tools. We can see that hello world is printed out to the screen. Now we can close the window, and now let's try printing another statement into the screen. Go to the next line and type out cout with 2 insertion operators, then I love programming, followed by a semicolon. These 2 less than signs are called insertion operators. These will insert the code next to it into the output stream, which will print our message to the screen. Now let's try running our program again. When we run the program again, we can see that the hello world and the I love programming are located on the same line. When you want to move to the next line, we will need to close this window, and in the first cout statement, after the second quotation mark, add in another pair of insertion operators and type in end L. Make sure there is still only 1 semicolon after the end L. You do not need multiple semicolons for multiple insertion operators. Now we can try running our program again by pressing F5 or the green arrow. Now when we run the program again, we can see that the I love programming string is located on the next line. End L automatically moves the printing cursor to the next line. Make sure to use end L whenever we want to move to the next line because C++ does not automatically do this for us. Now let's say we're making more complicated programs and we carelessly forget to add a semicolon inside one of the cout statements. When we run the program, a window will pop up. When this window pops up telling us that there were build errors, make sure to always press no and never check the "Do not show this dialog again" box. The reason for this is because if we check it, then the program will run our last successful build every time, so any more code we type in will not take effect. After you press no, on the bottom of the screen, you should be able to see that there is an error message telling us that we're missing a semicolon before identifier getch. The number here between the parentheses is the line number of getch. This is why enabling line numbers is important. You can have a general idea of where your error is located. We will find line number 14 and see that we're missing the semicolon right here. Congratulations, you have crossed a very big hurdle. You have successfully compiled your first program. Feel free to subscribe as more episodes will be coming in the future.